Good morning. As Israel's war on Gaza intensifies, the death toll has surpassed 50,000 people. Despite calls from the international community for Israel to ceasefire, Israel is really determined to continue its aggression. The humanitarian situation is catastrophic, with hospitals and essential infrastructure targeted by airstrikes. What role does the international community play in addressing the escalating crisis, and how can humanitarian organizations continue to operate under these dire circumstances? Welcome to In Depth. The New York Times has reported that the UN is withdrawing about one-third of its international workforce in Gaza, with the reduction coming after an Israeli tank shell hit a UN compound. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that this decision was difficult at a time when humanitarian needs were soaring and as a resumption of Israeli attacks were killing hundreds of Palestinians, including women and children. At least 280 UN staff members have been killed in Gaza since the start of the war, the organization's largest loss of life in any conflict in its history. In addition, Israel has blocked all humanitarian aid into Gaza since March the 2nd, and with the border crossings closed, no food, medicine or clean water has entered the strip where 2 million people rely on essential aid for weeks. The war on Gaza reached a grim milestone, with the death toll reaching 50,000. The violence continues to escalate as Israel resumes its aggression, intensifying the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
The ongoing Israeli offensive in Gaza has now claimed over 50,000 lives since it began in October 2023. The massacres continue as a result of Israeli raids yesterday, some of which targeted the cities of Rafah and Qnews, resulting in the deaths of at least 30 Palestinians in just one day. The airstrikes followed the breakdown of a ceasefire agreement earlier this month. Israeli occupation forces continue their war on Gaza through both airstrikes and ground operations, as many humanitarian organizations continue to raise alarm over the exacerbating humanitarian crisis. As hospitals in Gaza face destruction, the healthcare system struggles to manage the growing number of casualties. Meanwhile, international calls for a ceasefire and reconstruction of Gaza continue to grow. In Cairo, the Arab Islamic Ministerial Committee, in a meeting with European participation, called for the resumption of Gaza negotiations and an immediate and full implementation of the ceasefire. The committee emphasized the rejection of displacement and called on the international community to mobilize resources for the Gaza Reconstruction Conference. The committee also emphasized the need for unrestricted humanitarian access and large-scale aid delivery across Gaza. But with the ongoing violence, the prospects for peace and recovery remain uncertain.
Well, for more analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Dr. Mohammed Osman, the International Relations Specialist, and from the occupied Jerusalem by Dr. Abdel Nasser Miki, the Political Science Professor. Good morning, both gentlemen, and welcome to In Depth. Let me start here with Dr. Osman. And Dr. Osman, what's your take on Israel's ongoing aggression on Gaza, with the death toll surpassing in few days, 50,000. And how do you assess the current international response to Israel's resumption of this brutal war?
Thank you for having me, Mona. Unfortunately, Israel has resumed its war on Gaza about a week ago. And this was not a surprising development. We all saw it coming because Israel does not see that it has a vested interest in committing to any long-term cessation of hostilities inside the Gaza Strip. The survivor, the political survivor of Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government hinges upon the resumption of this war. And also the enabling attitude that the Trump administration, the US administration of President Donald Trump has adopted with regards to the Palestinian-Israeli issue has basically emboldened Israel and encouraged it further to take such uncompromising stances on the questions of settling this conflict. And of course, namely, the idea that the US has been pitching since the investiture or the inauguration of President Trump, and that is the displacement of the Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip as a solution for the problem, which it is not. It's a war crime and a crime against humanity, what is being proposed. However, unfortunately, the Israelis have clinged into Trump's proposal. They have failed to adhere to the provisions of the ceasefire and detainee exchange agreement. We barely went through the first phase of the agreement, and then the Israelis unilaterally terminated the agreement and resumed a barbaric wave of airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, causing the death of about 600 to 700 people. And now ground incursions are underway in order to reoccupy parts of the Gaza Strip. And it's really alarming that we have seen media reports coming out of Israel saying, and even in the Western media, saying that the Israeli military intends to reoccupy Gaza, which means this did not even happen in the first phase of the war. In the first phase of hostilities from October 2023 until January 2025. Now there seems to be an intent to impose a long occupation along parts of the Gaza Strip in order to exercise security control over the enclave. And also this coincides with Israel establishing what they have called the voluntary relocation agency, which is basically a front for the mass displacement and the forced displacement of Palestinians. So if we link all the dots together, Mona, we see that now that Israel's genocide against the people of the Palestinian people, precisely the Palestinian people of Gaza, is entering a new phase, a more dangerous phase that might be unfortunately more decisive and devastating at the same time.
We'll get to this very particular issue you spoke about here, Dr. Osman, the voluntary displacement. Just after I go to Dr. Mickey here. And Dr. Mickey, how could the United Nations decision to reduce its workforce in Gaza after definitely the Israeli repeatedly attacks and it attacked its facilities immensely. How will that affect the already deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza?
Yes, I think the Israeli continuation of the aggression is, influencing and has a big impact on the life of the people inside Gaza. Even the United Nations and also Security Council, all of them, they should interfere in this in order to stop the Israeli aggression. Otherwise, I think the problem will be increasing for the life of the people, and also the massacres there, the destroying the hospitals, the schools, and also the life of the people will be more miserable. And also they will start, the starvation will start again in Gaza. As you know, in the 42 days when they have the ceasefire, about 25,000 trucks have been, that's entered Gaza, and it's have assistance aid. But now, in the beginning of this month, the Israeli blocked all the borders in Gaza, and they not allowing that to enter any assistance aids to the people of Gaza. But even that, they bombing and they attacking and they killing the people there. And also, beside the airstrike, the Israeli army also they entered Gaza and also they occupied Netzarim. That's again. And now they are bombing Khan Yunis and Rafah, and also in the north of Gaza. Even they killing beside the people also the journalists. Two journalists have been killed yesterday. So I think the United Nations should interfere and should pressures on the United States of America in order to return back to the first stage of the agreement, which Israeli didn't, that's even commitment to this, and they violated and going back to the war in Gaza. And I think the Israeli forces now and even the political that's level in Israeli want to reoccupy Gaza again, which is the first time that happened. Even it didn't happen on the first phase of the war. So we are witnessing now a big miserable situation, and even we have about 1,000 people have been killed in about 10 or 13 days from the beginning of the Israeli, that's attacking again.
Dr. Osman, getting back to what you were speaking about the voluntary displacement, and what do you think about this voluntary displacement? How far do you think it goes with the international laws? And from your point of view, do you think it is really a voluntary displacement?
Well, let's get something straight, Mona. Of course, what the Israelis are proposing or trying to apply right now is basically a less overt form of forced displacement, the forced relocation of the Palestinian people from their ancestral land. There is no such thing in this context as so-called voluntary displacement for a very simple reason. The Israelis on the ground are creating the conditions inside the Gaza Strip that would make it uninhabitable, that would compel the people of the Gaza Strip to have no other choice but to elect to leave the Gaza Strip if they could, at least a very significant portion of them, if a route is provided for them to exit the Gaza Strip. And it seems that the Israelis have, reportedly at least, have already set up deportation hubs in the port of Ashdod and in the military airport of Ramon, where they intend to deport any willing Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip into to third countries. Of course, this is a form of a covert form of forced displacement. You go in and you destroy homes, you destroy infrastructure, you kill people en masse, you commit massacres, you destroy health facilities, you deprive the entire Gaza Strip of basic humanitarian aid, which basically means the means of basic sustenance for the better part of the past 23 or 24 days. And then when you make the conditions over there unbearable and unlivable, basically, of course, and then you will tell people, oh, you can leave if you want to. Of course, some at least would leave if the option is provided. So, of course, what we are seeing here right now is a full-fledged crime of ethnic cleansing that the Israelis are actively trying to commit in the Gaza Strip. Of course, the people of Gaza are steadfast. The vast majority of them are attached to their land, and they refuse to be forced out of their land. However, of course, the Israelis are betting that through applying massive pressure, through depriving them of basically by creating an acute humanitarian crisis, they might force people to leave through that channel. And unfortunately, as long as the United States endorses such a course of action, we will not see the Israelis being deterred. And the Israelis are taking this route right now because Egypt, in particular, has taken a very hard stance that rejecting the idea of displacement. Basically, the president of Egypt has previously termed the idea of displacement a red line for Egypt that will never be crossed. So now they have to go to other options other than displacing the people to Egypt. And now they are trying to do that, as we said, by sea and by air. However, of course, they might succeed if this goes into motion. They might succeed in evicting a few thousand, maybe a few tens of thousands, 100,000. However, I do not find it logistically feasible that they will be able to displace about 2 million Palestinians through flotillas and planes out of the Gaza Strip. And I don't think any country in the world will be willing to accept such a huge number of refugees who come from a war-torn area under these conditions, especially that the vast majority of the international community rejects the idea of displacing the Palestinians. However, coming back to your original question, Mona, this is not voluntary displacement or voluntary relocation. This is an act of ethnic cleansing, which constitutes a part of a larger crime, a multi-dimensional crime of genocide that has been transpiring in Gaza. Over 60,000 people have already died due to direct attacks by the Israelis. Reports say that the 100,000 more have died due to indirect causes of the war. The population of Gaza now is dwindling. A percentage point of the population of Gaza has basically been exterminated. 2 million people, 1.9 out of 2 million people have been internally displaced inside the Gaza Strip. This is a textbook case of genocide, or at least an act of genocide, unfortunately, that we are seeing unravel before our eyes over the past 17 months on air, on live TV, while the world stands motionless, unable to push forward any agenda to help the beleaguered people of Gaza.
Right. Getting to you, Dr. Mickey, and you've just heard here, Dr. Osman, how has the blockade and the Israeli military aggression affected Gaza's infrastructure, life system, healthcare system, and all the life aspects, and what could be the long-term implications?
Yes, I think just one thing in order to, before the answering these questions, it is not as Dr. Uthman said about voluntary, that displacement, it is just forced. But there is no any concept of voluntary displacement
This is exactly what Dr. Osman said, indeed.
yes, by creating,
It's not voluntary. I said it's not voluntary. I never said
yes, yes.
voluntary.
Yes.
Yes. So that's by creating a bad condition in Gaza. So you are, that's creating the concept of that forced displacement. The other thing concerning your questions about, that for Gaza, I think the infrastructure of Gaza have been destroyed by the Israeli from the beginning of the aggression. After the 7th of October 2023, the Israeli was intention to, to destroy, to mass destructive for all the infrastructure, and they starting with, the electricity, the water, even the solid waste system, the sewage system, the schools, the hospitals, and also the universities, which is all things have been it's substantial to the people. By these things, the Israeli is trying to reach to point that They want to, that's to create a bad environment to the people there in order that they could, thinking to leave this strip because of the bad conditions. They tried this from the beginning, but that's after that the people of Gaza refused. Even when the Israeli army, they warned them to go from here to here, and maybe 10 or 15 times they went from the north to the south and from here to here by the forced displacement, and even by bombing the houses. About we are talking about from 300 400,000 houses have been they're destroyed. We are talking about 42 million from the construction waste. We are talking about a huge number of the waste in Gaza, especially solid waste. So the Israeli is creating, from the beginning, the bad environment to the people of Gaza in order that they to think to leave Gaza. After the agreement and after that the assistance have been entered to Gaza, they have that the starvation list minimize this, and also the people life have been that's recovery gradually. But after that, the Israeli didn't commitment to the agreement, but just for the even the first
Do
stage
you
when they
think,
reviewed.
Dr. Abdel Nasser, in such circumstances, there could be any kind of ability to resume the talks or the peace talks, or what do you think? Briefly, please, because we're out of time.
Yes, yes, yes. I think, yes, we can have this opportunity in order to come back to the negotiation and to start from the, even maybe in the first stage, we could make it like not the 3 stages, like what the resistant Hamas said that they want to, even they, all of them, even the Mediterranean, that they agree that they could even release all the detainees and also at the same time release the prisoner Palestinian resistance and also to end the war. But this needs, that the willing from the all party, especially from
Indeed.
Egypt and Qatar, to pressure on the United States of America in order to,
Yes, very,
to
very clear, Dr. Mickey. It needs a will from all parties. That was Dr. Muhammad, that was Dr. Abdel Nasser Mickey, the political science professor, and Dr. Muhammad Osman, the international relations specialist. We thank you both, gentlemen, for your insights. And I guess that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Many thanks for joining, and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.